Everybody, welcome to my channel, The Financial Trader's Mindset. In this video, I'm going to go over how you can crack and how do you beat the hodler by using liquidity pools, right? I mean, that's a big question, right? That's probably one of the biggest questions in the space. If you're providing liquidity, you cannot beat the hodler, right? That's what people put out there. I think that's the general consensus out there, right? I'm here to show you that that is not true. You can see that metric right there, LP versus HODL performance. That means that I'm performing an extra 30.71% on top of what the hodler is earning, right? So on top of their performance, so to speak, right? So let me minimize this. Now this is J.E.B. tracker, right? You can find the link in the description below. You can sign up. And what this does is you can just give you a quick overview, but it basically you plug in your wallet and you can see all your performance here, right? Like the gain, how much return you're earning. You can even filter by LPs, by the DEX, by chain, right? Date range, all that, right? And it gives you all these metrics. But what we're going to talk about today is how you can beat the hodler by using liquidity pools. How can you beat out a person sitting on the couch eating Doritos, just doing nothing, right? What would make your time worth the effort? So here you can see I'm earning 30.71%. Let's say if you run these numbers and it's closer to 0% or even negative, then you have a problem. That's simply because you're doing all this work for nothing, right? The hodler is doing nothing. They're beating you out, right? And that's a problem, especially if you're in there day in, day out, spending fees, spending time, spending energy, managing liquidity pools, only for you to just not earn more than what you would if you were just hodled. And that's a problem, right? Like, and what makes this number even more beneficial to me, I manage my liquidity pools once a week, once every couple of weeks, sometimes even once a month or every couple of months. So this number is great, right? Like it makes my ROI on my time and energy is fantastic, right? So how do you track this and how can you fix it, right? So we're going to go over that today. So here we have Metrix Finance. This is on their track tab of their dashboard. And you can see the overall liquidity pool performance of those wallets right here on this dashboard, right? It makes it super simple. And you can see here that what I got here is I got it filtered from March of 2024 and using the Ethereum USDC pair or USD pair. So that way you can track both USDC and USDT and USDBC, right? All the stable pairs that I use to farm concentrated liquidity with Ethereum and this pair. But you can see here, you can see the overall, profit and loss. You can see the asset gain, right? You can see the versus HODL performance. Now this is the important metric right here. And what it shows here is I'm way outperforming the hodler, right? And that's simply through proper pool management and managing my liquidity pools in a way so I don't end up buying high and selling low, right? That's to put it simply. But there's an extra component to this. And with my strategy, I like to accumulate the asset, say in this case Ethereum, and take it and hold it in spot or park it in Aave to borrow against, right? So then I could leverage up my position, farm more concentrated liquidity pools, generate more yield, and just keep that flywheel going, right? And just constantly keep earning and earning yields and growing my portfolio, right? That's the idea. Well, the problem with that is when I take that Ethereum out of the liquidity pools, Metrix Finance no longer tracks it. Although I did speak to Jake at Metrix Finance, and I've mentioned this to him. He said he's working on a borrowing lending feature where it'll be able to track your borrow and lends. And I mentioned if he could possibly find a way to be able to track your spot holdings in Aave or any lending platform to be able to give you an aggregate or a better overall holistic view of your portfolio. So we'll see if that comes out. It might not, it might, we never know, right? But what are some ways today that you can utilize to be able to better track this LP versus HODL performance? Well, I'm going to show you. So here we have Aave. Here you can see the Ethereum that I've been staking or lending out on Aave. This is like not all of it, but this is some of the Ethereum that I've accumulated in liquidity pools, took that and staked it here, right? That way I can borrow against it and farm more liquidity pools. What this does, it allows me to stay spot long Ethereum while also continuously farming liquidity pools and generating yield. The problem here is that this position is not reflected in these numbers. So how do you, if you're a stickler, kind of like me, like for details and just really pinpointing what is my actual performance, then there are a couple of ways that you can track this, right? The first is just manual, plain manual. You stake it in Aave, the Ethereum that you accumulated by looking at the liquidity pools you use to accumulate it, and then figure out, okay, this is about the average price I have. This is my cost basis in Ethereum. So for instance, you were farming liquidity pools from say 2,500 down to 1,500. You could say, well, I'd say probably my average cost basis, it doesn't have to be exact, but it could be a roundabout number. You could say it was around 2,000, right? $2,000. So that way you're holding the spot ETH and you can know exactly when you're actually in profit with this position. You don't want to make the mistake of where your cost basis is one number, but you think it's something lower. Like for instance, say your actual cost basis in this position is 2,000, but you think it's like 1,800, and you end up selling some of this position at 1,800, not knowing that you're actually taking a loss instead of selling above that $2,000 price, right? So that's one way to do it. A second way to do it, you can use a liquidity pool. You can use a liquidity pool in a range where you want to sell the asset, right? Say if you are not lending this out on Aave and you want to be able to track it, you can set up a liquidity pool. Say if you want to sell the Ethereum accumulated at 5K, now you can set up a liquidity pool range up in that upper range, right? You're probably wondering, well, why don't I just hold spot until I'm ready to sell it? Well, the problem with that is that this dashboard won't track your average price of that, or just kind of like give you a more accurate reading of your performance based on that spot holding. Like say if you stake it at right now at 2,500, right? Ethereum's around 25, 25, 24. You stake it right now at 25, 24, but your range is 5,000 to 10,000, right? So it's like double the price before you even get in range. Well, what that does is Metrix Finance will be able to track that. You'd be able to track the spot holdings. Now that's just an example. You can set it any way you want, right? But the idea here is to be able to keep your holdings in liquidity pools. That way Metrix Finance can pick that up and put it in the dashboard and give you an accurate reading, right? Because there are times where you don't want to sell the asset, right? You've accumulated on a drawdown. You don't want to sell it just yet, but you want to track it. And for me, I'm always looking for ways to automate and do the least work amount possible, but still get the best outcome, right? So hopefully that helps, right? And hopefully that gives you a better idea of how to use liquidity pools to get an accurate reading on your LP versus HODL. Okay, just to give it a quick overview on what I talked about in this video, right? Just summarize this. You have your LP versus HODL performance metric, right? You went to J.E.B.B tracker, and you're like, man, how can I improve that? Say it's at 0%, negative percent. You're like, this is not good. I'm doing all this work. The guy on the couch eating Doritos is doing nothing and he's outperforming me. Okay, that's a big problem. So how do we fix it? Well, you have to be able to accurately track that metric first, right? You got to be able to accurately track it, and then you can work on the mechanics, on what you're doing wrong, right? Focus on that, right? But first and foremost, you got to make sure you're accurately tracking, right? So right now, Metrix Finance doesn't spot holdings, right? Say you accumulated the Ethereum or accumulated the asset, you need to be able to track those spot holdings, right? So say you come in Aave, you like to park it in Aave. Well, you got to figure out the average price, your average cost basis of that asset, and be able to track it, right? You don't need anything elaborate or complicated. It just needs to be a number you could jot it down. Say, at least if I at least sell my holdings above this price, I will be in profit. That way you just have an idea of where you're going to be in profit, right? Another way is to set up a new liquidity pool. As soon as you accumulate the asset, you unstake it, set up a new liquidity pool, and set it at prices that you want to sell it at, right? Like say right now the price of Ethereum is at 25, 24. You want to sell it at between 5K and 7K. Right? So you set up a range of say 5,000 to 10,000. You won't be able to sell it or you won't be able to earn yield or nothing on it until you sell it up there, right? That's just kind of one example, right? But you get the idea, right? The idea here is that you want to have those spot positions held or tracked within Metrix, because then Metrix will be able to pick it up, right? And see this. Also J.E.B. tracker, right? J.E.B. tracker is just a separate tool, but it's one that I've helped advise in the creation of it, right? It's not as costly. Just does the job, right? It's not very elaborate or anything, but it gives you an overall portfolio view of how you're performing as a liquidity provider, right? So anyways, I want to leave you guys with that. Hopefully that was helpful. Make sure you're tracking correctly. Right now, we don't have the tools to be able to track our spot positions with our LP portfolio. So you kind of have to do a little bit of work on that end, either manually or set up a liquidity pool above price, right? Or above an area where you would like to sell the asset. That way you can accurately track. Now, say you set up your range 5K to 10K, but Ethereum goes to like 4K and you end up changing your mind. Well, Metrix Finance will still pick that up. Also J.E.B. tracker. They will both pick that up still, because they will see the value of your liquidity pool going up in value. Even though it's not in range, right? That the Ethereum asset will still go up in value, obviously, because you're holding Ethereum, goes up to a 4K value per Ethereum, and then that way you pull it out, and then boom, it would track it in this versus HODL, right? That way you can see exactly how you're performing. All right, so I want to leave you with that. Hopefully it helps. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you want access to these tools, I have the links in the description below. Also, you can join my Discord for free, and hopefully that all helps. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.